The Prophet 8 celebrates the 30th anniversary of Dave Smith's first instrument, the Prophet 5. Designed in 1977 and released in '78, its distinctive tone and features made it one of the most recorded synthesizers. It has appeared on thousands of tracks. And now, it's one of the most emulated. Virtual copies exist in software, hardware, even a performance bank on the Nord lead. It would be quite a challenge to top that, particularly when emulations are both good and cheap. But the Prophet 8 is neither an emulation of the original, nor is it a virtual analog. It combines extensive modulation, dual arpeggiators, and multiple step sequences with a 100% analog signal chain. It's easy to forget just how big some of the keyboards from the 70s and 80s were. Maybe I'm the only one who will find this funny, but you can actually fit the Prophet 8 inside an Oberheim. I thought the Evolver's controls were a bit cheap, but the new controls feel quite a bit better. The pitch and mod wheels on the top left might require an adjustment for those used to them positioned here, but I found the wheels sturdy and responsive. The keyboard is very expressive. Velocity and aftertouch both have adjustable response curves. In some ways, the basic specifications are closer to an Oberheim than a Prophet 5. 8 voices, low-pass filter with 2 and 4-pole settings, twin voice channels as a stack or a split. But that's barely scratching the surface. The Prophet 8 has dual stereo outs, allowing separate panning effects for each part, 2 program banks, each with 128 patches, which have a variety of examples of both single and double layered programs. While the single programs only have layer A active, often there's a surprising sound hidden when you activate layer B. Add digital stability on the analog oscillators, a delay parameter on each envelope, and individual glide rates for each oscillator. This can be useful for portamento effects. Once you look at the modulation, things get a lot more complicated. A third envelope, 4 LFOs, 4 step sequencers, filter modulation, and a full modulation matrix. The modulation is so extensive that I'm going to provide a second part to the review to focus on it. Right now I'll just concentrate on the overall tone and test its ability to recreate classic analog sounds. The first synthesizers used discrete circuits, adding up to thousands of parts. This was expensive, unreliable due to tolerance differences between components, and difficult to service. In the 70s, discrete circuits were integrated into chips, cost went down, reliability went up, leading to affordable and giggable electronic instruments. Chip manufacturers then integrated components into single chips, further bringing down cost and streamlining production. But the first discrete synthesizers still have the reputation as being warmer and fatter, while later instruments are reportedly more sterile and cold. Just like guitarists who argue endlessly about which vintage pickup sounds the best, you can go on any keyboard site and see pages and pages of spirited discussion on chips. "85% of Prophet 5 keyboards, and basically everything made by Sequential afterwards, used Curtis chips. They might be a bit brassy and more aggressive sounding than earlier instruments, but that's part of their appeal. They cut through a mix, they're punchy. The Curtis sound is part of the Sequential heritage. So it's natural that the Prophet 8 uses Curtis chips. create the vintage sound, and notice I didn't say emulate, the Prophet 8 uses a parameter called slop, adding fluctuation to the oscillator. This is different from simply detuning one oscillator against another. Detuning adds a bit of beat to the frequency, but slop adds a varying shift to the oscillators. It doesn't sound drastically different, but in use it adds movement to the sound. The advantage with the new Prophet is that you can have either extremely precise tuning or a more drifty sound. Of course, the Prophet 8 shouldn't be expected to sound exactly like an Oberheim, it wasn't designed to, but it can achieve similar sounds and has a comparable sonic weight to it. You will have to use different settings since the filter response is different. Like the Prophet 5 and unlike the OBXA, the 4-pole can be brought to self-oscillation. I do like the 2-pole mode. It's very useful for warm sounds with a solid foundation. One of my favorite sounds on the OBXA is achieved by layering a 2-pole program with a 4-pole. In the next part, I'll focus on the modulation and sequencing options, and I'll address both the positive and negatives of the Prophet 8.